Okay, let me show you this project. I am calling this wiring project Strat-O-Tele SS. Originally it was going to be the Strat-O-Tele 3, but I've decided to call it the Strat-O-Tele SS for a couple of reasons. But what I've got here is a Nashville B-Bender Tele. So it has the third pickup, it has the middle pickup in it. The way they wired this particular guitar from the factory, if position 1 is all the way back to the bridge, toward the bridge, which is typically how Fender numbers the positions. Position 1 is bridge by itself. Position 2, this is a 5-way switch, not a 3-way like on a normal Tele. Position 2 is the middle and the bridge in parallel like you would get on a Strat. The center position is the neck and the bridge in parallel like you would get on a Tele. And position 4 is the neck and the middle in parallel like you would have on a Strat. And then position number 5 all the way forward is the neck by itself. So what I am wiring here is something that's a little more like a combination of a Strat and a Tele. What you can't get out of this guitar in its factory configuration is the middle pickup by itself, which is kind of a fairly common Strat sound. So what I've done is, instead of just adding that one sound, I've actually added a couple of different sounds. So what I'll end up with is, I'm putting in an S1 switch. I'm putting in this Fender S-1 switch, which I modified in another video to be a no-load pot, actually, in this configuration. But I'll have this set up so that the tone pot is actually going to have the push button on the top of it. What ended up happening with this guitar is I want to have the S1 switch so I can have my switching changes. In this particular guitar, I have no idea if I'll be able to show this on camera. Let's see what I can do here. I don't know if I can or not. Yeah, maybe I can. So what you'll see in here is they didn't route this control cavity opening all the way to the same depth all the way through. It's deeper up here where the 5-way switch would go. It's deeper back here where the wires go out to the output jack, but in the middle it's actually higher, and the ground wire is attached there in the middle as well. So what happens then is I don't have the depth underneath the volume pot to add in this S1 switch. I don't have that kind of depth, but I do have that depth back here under the tone. So rather than route out the body and have to repaint it with conductive paint and make that kind of modification, we agreed that what we would do with this is just change out the tone pot, which actually to me makes a certain amount of sense, because the change to get different sounds is actually on the tone control rather than the volume control, which seems somewhat logical to me. So what I've got to do here is, the other piece that comes into play here is this was the original tone pot on this guitar was a no-load tone pot. So the owner of the guitar is used to having a no-load tone pot. In case you're wondering, the blue is blue tape. It's just regular painter's tape that I've laid down on here to protect the finish while I'm working on the guitar. So this S1 switch, what it's going to allow me to do is, in the up position, it's going to be more like a Tele. I'm thinking in terms of that being the Tele position. With it down, it will be standard Strat switching. So with the switch down, the forward position number 5 is neck by itself. Number 4 is middle and neck. Third position is the middle by itself. Number 2 position is middle and bridge, and the number 1 position is the bridge by itself. So since I've got all those Strat selections all together with the button down, so the button down, think it functions as a Strat. With the button up, I wanted to see what else I could do, well, thinking as a Tele player. So most Tele players are used to just a 3-way switch instead of a 5. All the way forward is the neck by itself, the middle being the neck and the bridge, and all the way back being just the bridge. So what I wanted to do with this number 2 and number 4 position, number 4 is actually going to wire the neck and the bridge in series with each other instead of parallel. That's a great tone. Fender puts that on the Baja Tele, as a fourth option. And then the number 2 position is going to be the middle and the bridge in series, which gives you more of a bridge humbucker tone. So that's a very usable, a very good sound as well. So that's going to be my switching selections. Button down is going to be like a Strat, button up is going to be a Tele with 2 additional series positions. I'll try to walk you through this as best as I can. I will definitely be posting some things on the internet with wiring diagrams and photos and things. But let's just take a look at this. Coming with out of the guitar, you've got the neck pickup is actually this white cable, and that is a shielded cable. There's a braided shield, which I don't think you can see there, but there's a braided shield there, and then inside of that is a white center conductor, which actually is that cable there. The middle pickup is this cloth wire, yellow and black, that is cloth, and they actually have these wires reversed from what you would think. The plus lead, the hot lead, is black, and the minus is yellow. I'm going to refer to ground and hot as plus and minus, just because that makes it easier for me with my diagrams. The bridge pickup is also yellow and black wires, but these are not cloth covered. In order to get all the switching options I want, I needed a super switch. It's got 4 sets of 5-way, and each position on the 5-way has its own terminal to connect to. And that actually is a Fender. I actually purchased the Fender part number, but there's a number of companies that make those. And then also the S-1 pot, which in this case I have converted to a no-load pot. So with my wiring diagram, what I'm going to start with is neck plus, middle plus, both get connected directly to the output and stay connected to the output all the time. I use the grounds to switch them in and out of the circuits, but this is the middle, this black from the middle pickup, which actually ends up being considered the plus. That's tied, if you can see that, that's tied to the volume pot on this terminal, the volume pot. The neck plus is actually this white wire here. It's coming off of this white connection there, and that's going to the output pot as well. And then the bridge minus is that's actually originally soldered onto the volume pot right there, along with the output wire. Those 2 are originals. I just have left them on there. So from there, what I'm switching is neck minus, middle minus, and bridge plus. I'm not using one set of contacts on here. That whole set of contacts actually is unused in this switching configuration. So the neck minus, which is the braid of this white cable, is connected to the common terminal of the super switch. The common terminals are on the ends. There's one down there, there's one down on here, and then on the other side, which is maybe a little easier to see, the 2 commons are down here, and then you've got your 5 positions. So I've got the neck minus connected there. I've got the bridge minus, which is the bridge plus. I've got bridge plus, which is a yellow cable. I've got that connected down there to the common. I'm going to call these switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, switch 4 of the super switch. You can call them anything you want, but for my documentation I have to give them something of a name. And then the middle pickup minus, which is this yellow cloth, I've got that connected over here to what I'm calling the 3rd switch of the super switch. Those connections are all made. On the super switch, as is the case with most of these kind of lever switches, position 1, which is what we're calling the back position toward the bridge, because of the way the lever is, becomes the first position here. If you're looking at this switch, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terminals that you can connect to as you rotate through. Position 1 ends up being on the left here, and then position 2 here, position 3, position 4, position 5. The same thing happens on these. Even though the common is down here instead of over here, the 5 terminals will still function the same way. Position 1 will be connected to here, position 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing on these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're working left to right here, which is kind of the opposite of how they function when you've got the thing up. 1 is there and 5 is here. When you've got it flipped over, you're kind of working backwards. 1's on the left and 5's on the right. So, starting with the, I'm just going to randomly start here and kind of work through these wires that I've got. On middle minus, terminal 2 is connected to terminal 4 over here of the neck minus. And then that same wire continues on. Actually, what I did was I just took a razor blade and cut through the insulation and pulled it apart and made a gap so that I could thread that wire through and have a continuous wire and solder there on that terminal. So this is a single wire that actually feeds through that terminal, and there's a gap in the insulation where I soldered it. So then this wire will continue on from there, and that's going to get connected to the S1. So I'm going from terminal 2 here to terminal 4 there, and then on to the switch. Going back to the middle minus, positions 3 and 4 tie to each other. I just made a little bit longer extension of wire there so that I could feed through one and loop it over and solder it to the other. So those are actually tied together, and they're tied to this yellow wire, which then will go off to the S1 at this point. That's not attached to anything. There's no connection on terminal 1 or terminal 5. So that's it for that one. Looking at the N minus, what I've got here is terminals 1 and 2 are no connection because we don't use the neck in either configuration. In positions 1 and 2, I'm not in none of my configurations am I using that neck pickup. The third terminal is a single wire, which is going to go connect over to my S1. So I've got a single black wire connected there. Terminal 4 we've already discussed. It comes over from there and then continues on. Terminal 5 is always tied to ground, so I put a green wire on there. That green wire is going to get probably soldered onto this volume pot right here. So terminal 5 is a green wire, will always stay grounded in every configuration. I'm not using this whole set of switching contacts for this configuration. So now we've got the B+. Common is down here. In position 1, position 1 is tied to the output all the time. So I've got a white wire that goes down and kind of loops around and goes to the output terminal. I haven't soldered these yet because I'm going to add some more things and then I'll solder them all in one shot. So there's the terminal 1 goes to the output, so we'll be in both Strat and Tele configurations. And then terminal 2 is going to go over to my S1. It's just a single wire that goes over to the S1. Terminal 3 also will go to the S1 for switching. Terminals 4 and 5 are no connection. And that's the beginning of the wiring. So that's all the wiring that I need to do on the 5-way, on the super switch. And now I will put in the S1 and solder all those connections and solder this ground and then solder my output. I've got a few more connections made, so I want to show that I've got the S1 pot installed now as the tone pot, and I've got the tone cap connected between, if you're looking at the back of the pot, it's the terminal on the left to ground. One end is on the terminal, the other end is tied over here to ground. If it would focus, you could see that. And then the wiper of the tone pot here is a white wire that goes over and got soldered in with all the rest of the group here on the output, on the volume pot. So I now have all my wires connected there and they're all soldered in. I've gone ahead and soldered the ground wire, the one green ground wire, and then this black wire is a wire that goes down into the body. It's actually attached inside the cavity. And then I've pulled my output jack just so I can get it out of the way. And there's the output. Made a few more connections here. I forgot that I needed an output connection to the S1, so I've taken it off of the tone pot since that's tied directly to the output. I had actually originally intended to make that a single wire that looped through there, but forgot about that while I was wiring. So that wire there, that white wire there, connects the output to, this is the S1. If you see my video on the pin out, that's pin number 2. 1, 2, and 3 is the first switch, so that is the center terminal of the first switch. Then I needed some grounds here. I'm going to be switching some things to ground. So I needed another ground wire, which I have tacked on to that volume pot. The volume pot has become my star ground. All the grounds go back to that. And that guy comes along here, and I've just done the solid single wire where I've stripped back some of the insulation, separated it so I could tack it on the side of the pot, and then bring it up to the S1. So it's going to pin 6, and then over to pin 10, and then over to pin 9. So those are all grounds. Now I've got the rest of my wires connected to the S1. This black wire that is connected here to the neck minus number 3. That is connected to pin number 11 on the S1. Pin number 8 on the S1, which is the center there, that is tied to this, which is tied to positions terminals 3 and 4 of M minus. Did I say neck minus there? Middle minus is this yellow wire, which is connected to pin 8. Okay, on the other side, let's take a look at pin 5, which is the center of switch 2 on the S1. That is this black wire here, and it is the one that is connected to, it's connected over here to neck minus 4, and then it loops through to M minus 2. Then we've got this guy. So I have had the output connected to the center of switch 1. The position number 1 on the S1 is connected to position 3 on the bridge plus, and terminal 3 of the S1 is connected to position 2, bridge plus position 2. So I think that accounts for everybody, maybe not. We've got a yellow wire here that actually, oh, this is one I forgot earlier. B plus, the bridge plus lead actually has to connect to the S1. So I've got a yellow wire that I've brought through, and I've just connected it in to the common here on the 5-way. So I ran that back here, and that is connected to pin number 4 on the S1. The others are no connections. Pin number 7 is a no connection. Pin number 12 is a no connection. I guess that's it, just those two. Now there's a couple of caveats here. I could have shortened this screw, but I didn't, which caused me a little problem here. The screws that hold this 5-way super switch on, these two screws that you see up here, they're fairly long, so they can accommodate different thicknesses of tops. On this, obviously, the the control plate is very thin. So this screw comes in quite a ways. Well, it actually will come all the way in and it made contact here with my neck minus connection at the common terminal there. So I screwed it all the way in and shorted that out, and then I had some wiring issues until I figured out that that's what that was doing. So keep an eye out for that. You might have the same issue over here depending on how you wire on this side. You got this long screw over here as well. There's one other thing that I need to talk about on this guitar. The Tele neck pickup has a it's magnetic, has a metal cover on it, and that metal cover underneath is connected to its minus wire, the ground wire. So in this kind of a configuration where I am lifting that ground wire and then instead of connecting it to ground, connecting it to it looks like the only thing I'm connecting it to is the bridge, and when I go to that series connection. When that happens, this bridge is no longer, this cover is no longer grounded. So if you've got it plugged in and in that position and you touch that, you get a buzz. So the solution to that problem is I've got to take the strings off, take the pick guard off, and I've got to run a ground wire, an individual ground wire, back to my ground and over to this cover, separate it from its ground wire that's there, and put a new ground wire to it that will stay grounded no matter what that negative lead does. Loosen up the strings enough that I could slip the pick guard out from underneath. The easy part of this will be the running of the wire with this route that they've got on the body. There's not much that I have to fish through. So I'm going to use a green wire to go to ground, and I'm just going to slip it through with those others. He says, thinking that was going to be easy. Okay, there it goes. Alright, so I've got a ground wire now run into the cavity that I will pull through with enough space to be able to use that. And basically I've got to wire it over here to this front pickup. What's happening on the front pickup is, and I took a still picture of it that I'll edit in here. What's happening on this front pickup is there's a little wire that has been connected here. These two terminals are what the cable. Here's that. It's a coax with a braided shield. The two connections are here. The wires actually loop through a hole and get soldered into place. But on this front pickup where there's a metal cover, there's a little tab there. Then there you see the wire right there that connects that to to that braided shield wire. So I'm going to desolder that and bring my new green wire in and solder that in its place. That's going to come out okay on the camera. So what I've done is I've clipped that wire. Actually, I just desoldered it from this terminal here, and I used the wire. I bent it back into a hook shape, and I took my new ground wire and I made a hook out of that and kind of crimped those together, and I've soldered that on so it's no longer touching there, and this other cable is insulated so it's not going to affect that. And now I'm going to go back into the control cavity and solder it to my volume pot. Well, here's my finished product, and it's a little crowded. I ended up with 6, I believe, ground wires tied to that volume pot. The one nice thing of pulling the pick guard is I was able to pull some of this wiring back into the cavity, the route cavity underneath the pickups. So that shortened up these leads a little bit for me to get some of this wiring out of here. It's a pretty tight fit. This super switch, I chose the way I wired it partly because I wanted to make sure that I had no wires passing through on this edge so that I could keep this edge real tight, because it's a real tight fit trying to get all this wiring and that switch down inside this cavity. So let's see if we can make this all happen. Tuck those in there. Look good on the other side. and it doesn't fit. Okay, I learned from my mistakes. This tone cap here has got to get tucked in. It's sticking out too far. Camera won't focus on it. Nobody likes this tone cap. This tone cap, the way I've set it up here, it can't push in any further because it's up against the that wafer. Well, that is just terrible. It's not focusing at all. So I'm going to have to lift that and move that over a little bit. Okay, it took a little work, but I've got this now to where it'll drop in the cavity pretty easily. I took this, the tone cap, and just flipped it 180 degrees so it's up instead of down. That gets it inside the body and makes it drop in. I had to flatten these ground wires down a little bit because they were keeping it from going all the way in. I've rerouted this wire so it's going to kind of drop into that channel. Just a little bit of work to get that to where it needs to be. And now I should be able to, you got to kind of feed the front in first with its, that 5-way. And eventually that kind of settles in. And it's a beautiful thing. Get the screws in, and I've already done all the testing to make sure that all the settings do what they need to do, and so now I've got the Strat-O-Tele SS ready to go. The guitar is complete now. I've got the S-1 switch over here on the tone pot, and it is a no-load tone pot now, and I've got 8 different combinations of pickups depending on which position that switch is in, and the result's fantastic. I really like what we've got here. But let me talk a little bit about the neck pickup. I don't have another Tele neck pickup with the metal cover over it, but this is similar enough that at least I can explain what happened. This is just an inexpensive pickup for a Strat, but this has the same kind of shielded cable, where you've got the inner conductor. The cable feeds up through a hole in the base of the pickup and then solders onto some terminals here. Well, with that shielded cable, the ground wire, if you will, of the pickup is a non-insulated piece of braided wire. So when you've got a metal cover over the pickup, this one's obviously plastic, but if this were a Tele neck pickup, that braid ends up touching the metal cover, and even though I clipped the little jumper wire and connected my new ground wire on the backside, the ground wire of the pickup was still touching the metal cover. So to make a long story short, I ended up desoldering that and wiring in a little extension of shielded wire and a bunch of things there, which created some other headaches because of the way that pickup is wired, and the little fine wires from the pickup actually go to those terminals on those pickups. So I would suggest in the future what I would do with this is I would probably just take a small flat blade screwdriver into here and compress that braid enough to get it away from the metal cover, and then probably put some liquid tape down in there to insulate the two, rather than taking it apart and desoldering anything and messing with any of that. So that's another lesson to be learned from this project, is do that one the simple way and don't mess with the pickup wires at that end.